Hope I am audible. We'll start. Last time we have seen what is meant by research design, research strategy. So we have seen. The next point is features of good research design. So good research design should have some properties so that we can define clearly and at the end, based on the good research design, we should achieve our target or we should do a research study and we should prove a hypothesis into a theory. It, it indicates that if your research design is good, definitely there are more chances to achieve it. So how to decide which research design is good? And it is decided on the basis of some of the features or we can say characteristics. Good research design have ability to obtain the information. So good research design have one feature that it should allow you to obtain information. You should collect more and more information and when you are doing some processes, you should obtain the processed information. It should use and it should have the skilled researchers available. So available of skilled researcher is also a good point. And if it is there, definitely a research design will be implemented correctly. So whoever is directly or indirectly concerned with the design research, he should have a skill with him and he should available. So availability and skills. The researcher should have the skills to do a research study and he should a researcher and the related personality should available to do it. The objective of the problem to be studied. So we should the research design should have the feature that it allows to study the objective of problem statement. So we should have a thorough knowledge of problem statement so that we can understand what will be the objective of this problem. And once the objectives of the problems are clear, definitely to achieve them or how to achieve the implementation of methodology and processes will be very easier. It should also allow them or identify the nature of problem. Good research design have enough time and the cost required to do it. So research design allow us to calculate the time required and the cost related so that smoothly the research study or research work can be carried out. Research design should have a flexibility enough so that it can consider different aspects of the study when the exploratory research is implemented. So it should have the capability to be flexible enough. And most important thing is that design should be accurate with minimum bias. Minimum bias means changes. So design should have a minimum bias, and it should be accurate enough. So these are the features of good research design. Good research design allows you to obtain information. Good research design has the ability of the researcher to be skilled and the research is available for the objective of the problem can be thoroughly studied, the nature of the problem can be understood. It should allow you to calculate the time required and cost required to implement the research study and do the research. It should have a flexible enough so that it can consider all the aspects of the study, specifically in case of exploratory experimentation or research. And it should have a accurate so that it will have a minimum bias, minimum changes with accurate description with available of all the detailed information about the science. So these are the features of a good research design. If you have this, you can say that your research design is very good, and your research study will lead you towards the achievement of hypothesis or achievement of objectives of the research. Next is exploratory research design. Always exploratory research is guided by some hypothesis or set of hypotheses. It is nothing but it is a type of research conducted for a particular problem, but problem itself has not clearly been understood. So exploratory research is nothing but it is a process of gathering facts and doing research which after completion allows you or team to create the best research design. Also data collection methods for specific subjects. Process of this exploratory research design will give you definite conclusions. Sometimes when we do the process, exploratory research design process, it clearly states that there is no problem actually exists. And exploratory research is always guided by a set of hypotheses like operational definition, statistical testing, and this. Descriptive research. Already, I think in last lecture itself, we have seen the different types, four types. We will just see the descriptive research design is again a research method which is used when when somebody wants to get information on current status of a particular subject or object or regarding any person also. Right, descriptive name itself give you that we want clear and enough and accurate and correct information, more information on the current status of a particular object or subject or a specific person also. So descriptive research design is used to describe what is there in existence with parallel conditions or you can say with related conditions and variables in that particular situation. And descriptive studies can involve only one-time interaction with person or group of people, or a study might follow a particular individual over time. So descriptive research will give you the information of current status. Diagnostic research design. We have seen that it is related to frequency, right? So diagnostic research study determine the frequency of occurrence of something or its association with something else. So as I said, if last time we have seen example of listening to music will reduce the blood pressure level in the patients, right? So we are creating the two groups of people there. One group will be listening music continuously, and second group is not listening music correctly. You can say not at all. And then we'll check the levels of frequency of BP in both the groups, and we can conclude that, or we can come to the hypothesis or objective that those who are listening, whether level of blood ratios or not. So like this. So here the diagnostic research determines the frequency of, which is hypothesis testing research design. In hypothesis testing, we can say this is kind of experimental study. When an experiment is a study in which we can study the treatment, we can study the procedure, or we can study the program intentionally so that we can check the result or outcome, and we can observe the outcomes and results. So this is an experimental study or hypothesis testing study. Also, there is the American Heritage Dictionary of English Language, which defines experiment. What is in the experiment as? There is a experiment definition as a test under controlled conditions, which is made to demonstrate a true fact or a truth, and we can examine the validity of hypothesis, or we can determine the efficiency of something which is not classified, or which is not tried. True experiments have four elements: manipulation, control, random selection or assignment. So random assignment and random selection. We can select the random samples, we can assign randomly something, we can apply the control to whom, in previous case like who will listen the music and who will not. So we are applying control and manipulation. And out of these four elements of experiments, the two are very important, and those are manipulation and control. Manipulation, we can say it is something which is purposefully changed by the researcher or the staff in the conditions or in the environment. So that is manipulation. And control, as I said, we can use to prevent particular factors, outside factors, from influencing the our study outcome or result. Correct. So, an experimental study or a hypothesis testing research study, we do a study experiment, and we study the treatment procedures, programs intentionally, and we observe the result, to observe the outcomes of it. So, let's just process of designing and conducting research project. I said we ask particular questions. Those questions we can type in. So this is the how we do the or conduct the research project. What so what was studied? So the kind of questions. What about? So what aspects of the subject were studied about the research problem? What for? Or what is or what was the significance of the study, which will give you the objectives of your study? What did prior literature or research say? So this we can say this is a literature survey where we can get the information what is until now we know, we do have information, and what is unknown, and we can define that what is unknown, or we can do the process to identify it. What was done, that is methodology. How was the study conducted? Right? What was done? How was the study conducted? What was found? What are the observations? And if these are things, then what is the conclusion? So what? And what now? What now will give you the future? The process of designing and conducting a research project is what was studied, what aspects of the subject were studied, what was the significance of the study, what did the prior literature or researchers says about it, what was done, how was the study conducted, what was the found, what is the outcome, what is the result. So what means what definitely it indicate what is the conclusion, what is a summary of it, and what now, what is the future. Right? So research design refers to the plan, structure, and strategy of the research. This is the blueprint which will guide the research process to implement. So research design refers to the plan, structure, and strategy of the research. Is acting as a blueprint which will guide the research process to go ahead. We can have the test for the quality of the study, research design, which is nothing but it is a conclusion validity. Right? So conclusion validity refers to the extent of the researcher's ability so that he can draw accurate conclusions. He can come up with accurate conclusions, results from the research, and that nothing but it is the degree of the study. Again, it have two types, two parts: internal validity and external validity. Internal validity indicates the correctness of conclusions which are coming up after the process implementation, and also which will define the relationships present between the variables which we have examined. This also tell you that the variables, the things which we have considered while doing the research, whether they are really connected, whether they are really associated with each other or not. So that is the internal variability. That is nothing but whether the relationship variables we have considered, whether they are correct or not, if they are related or not. Sometimes if they are not related, definitely we cannot go further or next things will be wrong. External validity is the next part. Generalizability of the external validity is nothing but it is generalization of the outcomes, findings, whether they are appropriate or not, whether they are as per required requirement or not. Whatever area we have selected, whether that area is appropriate as per the conducting study, whether it is correct or not. That is what is mentioned by the external validity. How we achieve, how to do this, how to achieve internal validity, whether how to check the variables which are considered related, which we have considered for the research study, whether they are related or not, whether they are correct or not. So how to achieve this internal and external validity? Definitely it means conclusion validity. For that we can have three types of variances. and we can control effectively so that we can do internal and external validity. Sometimes we do have a dependent and independent variables. And the variables are dependent unless and until previous things are not processed. We cannot go to the next or we cannot achieve it. Right? And some variables are there which are not dependent on some other variables. So there is a difference. Variance of the independent and dependent variables. So we can control the dependent variables and independent variables and related things. So we can say that this is the systematic variance which we control so that we can identify internal and external variables. Then we can have confounding variance, confounding differences. Even also we can calculate variance by using the formula. Root of mean square is variance. And mean is also nothing but it is a average. Now variable of potential extraneous confounding and sometimes they vary in nature. So variability of potential noises. Sometimes there is error, noise. Sometimes there are extraneous or outside variables. Sometimes the confounding variables are there. Controlling this, that how much noise should be allowed or be generally considered, right? For example, when we convert one form of energy into other, there is a transformation. But 100% we are transforming one energy into another energy. It's not possible. Sometimes there is a loss. Sometimes some other things are also present. That is considered as a nuisance, or extraneous variables, or confounding variables. And controlling this, that how much it should be. That's why we are saying by effectively controlling three types of variances, we can achieve internal and external validity so that we can identify which are the internal variables, which are the external variables, which are the dependent variables, which are the independent variables, how much noise are there, where there are chances of insertion of noise, where extraneous variable plays a role. So like all these questions we can control and identify. Third variance is error variance. Error variance that calculating error or frequency, measuring error. Sometimes error comes very less, sometimes error is very big. So this is the variance, right? Between the results, attributes, whatever we are calculating, measuring. So such error variance also we have to control that error should be minimum. Error should be minimum, always. So how to minimize the error? And we are controlling it. We are defining those factors also. That how we can reduce the error. Where that error is getting inserted, identifying that is also a challenge. So by effectively controlling these three type of variants, we can do research design with internal and external validity as conclusion validity. Next is guiding principle that we can go for effective research design. Effective control of variance automatically, which is nothing but it is a effective research design, and we can have one particular guiding principle for that, and that is called as a max min con principle. Max min con principle. Just check somebody is waiting or not. I think nobody is joining. Just one second. So for effective research design or effectively controlling the variances, we can have a one guiding principle, and that is nothing but a max, min, and con principle. Max, min, con. Max maximize, min minimize, con control. So maximize systematic variance. Systematic variance, maximize systematic variance. So variance of and variable. So identify which are dependent variables, which are independent variables, how many variables are there, whether they're associated or not, whether they're correctly defined or not. If yes, definitely, if you are able to identify all, if you are able to identify all depending variables and independent variables, definitely it indicates that your systematic variance is maximum. So try to maximize systematic variance. It is minimize error variance. Minimum error, as I said. So we have to go for minimizing the error variance. If we have calculated error previously it was 0.5, next time we are calculating then that it is going for 1.0, 1.5. So we'll try to reduce it as low as possible. See, research is not a single step process. That if I do a single step, that's it. I've done it. You have to repeat those steps. You have to do the same process again and again. So calculating BP levels of those who are listening music again and again. Calculating BP level of the second group which is not listening to music again and again. Comparing both values again and again for time duration for longer time. Right? So remember, research is not a single step process. It is a continuous cyclic process. You have to repeat unless and until you come up with good observations. You come up with good systematic variances. You come up with good conclusions. Unless and until you have a conclusive remark, you cannot stop your experimental research or exploratory research or descriptive research or hypothesis testing research. So minimizing error is trying to minimize error, which is getting introduced when we do the process. So maximize systematic variance and minimize error variance and control the variance of noise, extraneous, exogenous, and confounding variables. So if you implement this max min con principle, definitely we can say that it is a good research design. Not only good research design, it is effective research design. So this is the guiding principle.
Okay. Am I audible? Due to electricity problem, I was out of the meeting. Hope I am audible now, Shraddha. Am I audible? I have rejoined, I think.
Yeah. Hope I'm audible. Hope I'm audible. Due to electricity problem, got out of rejoin. So we are discussing about the good, effective research design, and we say that if we implement the guiding principle of maximizing the systematic variance, minimizing the error variance, and controlling the nuisance extraneous variables, compounding variables, definitely we can uh, we can implement the effective research design. So any problem up to this?
No, sir.
Yeah. So next is how exactly we can maximize this systematic variance when we do the experiments. Right? And we can do that by whatever range we are selecting, data range, information, data we require, no, we require to collect the data. And range of that, we can increase widening more and more maximum ranges of values if you consider, definitely error will be less. So automatically in one stroke we can achieve these two controlling principles, guiding principles. So one is maximizing and minimizing. So whatever range you are considering, maybe for positive values or negative values, you go for widening that. If only 10 and 20 samples if you select, definitely your hypothesis based on the small samples will not lead you to the better conclusion. So widening the range of values in specifically research variables will be helpful. So proper manipulation of experimental conditions so that we can ensure high variability of independent variables. So that is how we can do this systematic variance, maximizing systematic variance. That is regarding in experiments. What about non-experimental studies like your descriptive? So here we try to calculate dependent and independent variables or measure those at the same time simultaneously, so that we can also examine the relationship association between the dependent and independent variable. So appropriate selection of variables or subject is very much important, and that is how we we implement the maximizing systematic variance principle, max principle, in non-experimental studies. So we select subjects which are sufficient, they are different, sufficiently different with respect to the study of main variables. Now, again here also we will implement same methodology, same process, that we will not restrict the range, we will wide our range. We'll go for selecting maximum samples. If out of 1000 we are selecting 600 samples, we try not to restrict only 600. If possible, we go for 700, 800. So in non-experimental studies also we'll try to go for maximum range and select the proper subjects. There we will calculate the dependent and independent variables, measure those at the same time, and we can examine whether they are associated with each other. We can find out the relationship between them. So this is how the non-experimental studies are doing, so that they can maximize the systematic variance. I think this much is enough for today. We'll stop here. We'll meet next time. I don't know. Somebody tried to join in again. Then I got the intimation. I've I think allowed one student. I found that if somebody trying in between, don't know whether they are allowed to join or not. Okay. I'm recording all these things. Definitely, once a Moodle account get created, I will post there. Else, I will mail everything. So, thank you joining, Shraddha. We'll end here. We'll meet in next week. Thank you. Good.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, we'll stop here. You can leave.
Yes.